In today's podcast, we're going to cover the 5 tests that I would recommend for you.
Mind, body, nutrition, the Triple Play Podcast. Because everybody's an athlete in this game of life. Get off the sideline. Time to get in the game.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This is Dr. Mike. It's been a while, and the summer is winding down. Our kids are back in school. Your kids may be back in school as well. And now we have a high schooler. Yes, our oldest just started high school, and he is attending the same high school that my wife and I attended where we met in high school. And it's so exciting just to see their growth and to see the things that they're going to be going through and all the fun stuff that surrounds that. You remember high school, right? It's either a love-hate relationship with that institution. And we also had our 25th class reunion. Yay, class of 1997. And that was a very fun time. You know, the one interesting thing about having our class reunion and being 25 years, it's as if we never left each other, and we picked up exactly where we left off. Some of my classmates I haven't seen for 25 years since we graduated, and it was so great to see them and great to see where they've led their lives and how far they've taken themselves throughout these past 25 years. So congrats to our class of 97 at Kamehameha Schools. Here's to many more of those. So one of the common questions that I get from patients would be, hey doc, I ran all of these tests with my medical doctor, and I feel terrible, but all my labs they seem normal. That's a fairly common conversation that I have, especially with first-time patients that meet with me. And when I dive into their labs, I usually find that they were just the run-of-the-mill labs, right? The metabolic panels, sometimes dabbling into the hormones and maybe something specific towards the complaint at hand. But there are 5 tests that I usually will get to if we need more information, if we're just kind of stuck scratching our heads and we need more information. And that's what I wanted to give you guys in today's episode, is I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a deeper look and saying, hey, you know what? Because there are more than 5 tests, I understand that. But these are the 5 that give you the biggest bang for your buck. So the first one that we look at would be a genetic test. Now, when people hear the genetic test, they automatically think of stuff like Ancestry.com or 23andMe, because those spit out information regarding your health status. But I haven't found those to actually be as useful as the one that we started utilizing a few months back. And let me give you a little bit of a background on this genetic testing and why we would do this. Now, genetic testing gives us an insight to your genetic blueprint, obviously. And what that tells us is what could be your possible strengths and what could be your possible weaknesses. What it doesn't say, or what it doesn't tell you, is exactly what's going to happen. It's not a fortune teller. Right? It's not saying just because you have this gene, you're going to have this XYZ disease. All it does is it tells us you have the gene, and if you partake in a specific lifestyle that could activate that gene, then you can possibly expect to have an expression of that. Or if you have what's called a SNP for a specific metabolic process that you may be deficient in. A lot of people know the MTHFR genetic mutation, or some people can be, there's a specific gene that maybe you're a slow detoxifier. Right? All of these things can affect, all of these genetic twists can affect how your body functions. And this is the beauty of having A test like a genetic test that will give you an insight into showing you, are these an issue for your body? So one of the things that we utilize this for is to give us a basis. One, does it show us that you're a poor detoxifier? Does it show us if you need a specific type of dietary intervention or a specific lifestyle? What I mean by that is there are some patients that I found that they just don't do well with high amounts of fat because they could be predisposed to a specific inflammatory issue, or they can be have familial hypercholesterolemia, all of those things that we need to address from a dietary perspective, meaning that not address in the sense that it's going to change, but it's how do we work with your blueprint? And that's the beauty of it. It gives us an insight onto, okay, how do we craft our lifestyle to fit what the blueprint is saying? All right. So the company that we utilize is called the DNA Company, and you can go to their website, thednacompany.com, and order their tests. I think it's $399 as of this podcast recording, but the information that they give you in that is awesome, right? And you can take that and actually start applying different lifestyle practices, right? If you know that you're maybe you need help with the detoxification department, you can improve the level of things that you do to detoxify, and you can also decrease the amount of toxic exposures. Meaning that if you know that you fall into that department, you wouldn't be the one that would partake in the heavy partying or smoking or all of that, the fun stuff, right? So that's the beauty of knowing your genetic blueprint. Now, if you've been following me for a while on social media, you know that I'm a big proponent for gut health, and I have a course called Total Gut Restoration. And the reason why that's so important is that's where health begins. Health is established within the gut. I mean, it's the interface between the external environment and the internal environment. And it's supposed to keep the bad stuff out and allow the good stuff in. 70% of our lymphatic system is located there. If you have chronic inflammation within your body, it's usually stemming from the gut. So if we get the gut in order, everything downstream will start to normalize. And one of the things that most people will recognize in the gut department is the value of gut testing. And there are a bunch of different gut tests, but the one that I really like that gives us the best bang for your buck is by a company called Viome, Viome, and specifically the full body intelligence test. And the reason why I like that one is it gives us, one, the oral microbiome, and that's often overlooked. And if you suffer from a lot of cavities, then you will find this very valuable. You'll be able to see what your oral microbiome is doing. And we know that if the oral microbiome is off, then most likely everything else is off as well. It will also give you your gut microbiome overview. And that's obviously what people know Viome for. But the other big one is that it'll tell you what's going on at the mitochondrial level. Now, you may have heard me in the past say that there's 3 different genomes that we need to address, that we need to support. One, obviously, is the nuclear DNA. We just talked about that in the first test. The second one would be the microbiome DNA. And then the third one is the mitochondrial DNA. So we have 3 different sets of genetics in our body that all have to be looked at and addressed. So what the gut microbiome needs will be very important, and it will be revealed within the test. What the state of your mitochondria is like will be revealed in the test. And then we looked in the previous test on what your genetic blueprint will need as well. So if we have those 3 covered, we know a lot of information about what our body needs to function at an optimal level. Now, when we get those results, we then can again change our lifestyle to fit that. So you got the first one of your nuclear DNA, and that tells you your nuclear DNA propensities. Then the Viome will tell you what is the propensities for the current gut microbiome makeup, and then it'll also tell you your deficiencies of your mitochondria. Now, with that information, you can kind of see certain overlaps and you can see certain holes that you may have been missing in your lifestyle practices. So now you start to fill in all of these holes and get more information so that we can make better informed choices about what we need to be doing as far as diet, as far as nutritional supplementation, exercise, all of those things that everybody already knows, but they don't know what's specific to them. That's the value of having these tests. Now, the third test that I would recommend is a hormonal panel, and specifically the Dutch test. Now, the Dutch test, the reason why I like the Dutch test so much is this shows us the entire hormonal picture along with how well it's being metabolized. So hormones goes from creation to destruction. Okay, so that's the way that it should be looked at. Hormones need to be created, so we need to see how many hormones are being created in circulation. Is it being utilized? And then is it being destroyed? Because you don't want that message to stay around longer than it needs to, right? It's all about let's produce the message, get it out, get the end result that we need, and then get rid of it. Because if it's staying around longer than it needs to, then we're stimulating the end organ as it doesn't need to be. So out of all the Dutch tests that they have, I really like the Dutch Plus and the Dutch Cycle Mapping Complete. So the Dutch Plus, let me look, it retails at a little over $500 as of this recording, and then the Dutch Cycle Mapping Complete is about $625 as of this recording. They often will change the price to reflect certain changes that they gotta or costs they gotta incur. There may be an increase in cost, so they have to they change the cost of it. But the Dutch Plus, Dutch Cycle Mapping Complete are two of the tests that I would definitely recommend because that gives us an overview of your major hormonal players. Now, it doesn't include all of the hormones. Like there's no, complete thyroid panel, but this gives us an insight into, some of the neurotransmitters, even some of the detoxification markers. So this covers a lot. So there's a lot of information that we can gain from this. So we got the genetic test, we got the gut from Viome, and then the Dutch Plus. Now, the next one would be a micronutrient test from SpectraCell. SpectraCell is like the gold standard for micronutrients. And the reason why we want to get an insight into this is we want to see where are the holes in the nutrients for our cells. So all cells need a specific array of nutrients in order for it to function, the certain metabolic pathways. And if there's a deficiency in any of them, then we start to see a backlog in the supply chain or in the cogwheel, right? Now, when we don't have those things in proper levels, and what happens is the body starts to borrow from other places. So you start to see other what we call secondary metabolic functions start to decrease in effectiveness. Now, the SpectraCell will give us an insight onto what all of their micronutrient levels are at. So vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids, everything from vitamins A, D, E, and K, the fat soluble ones, and the water solubles, the B's, the C's, and the reason why we want to look into these things is we want to see where our deficiencies lie. Now, the majority of the time you see deficiencies, sometimes you see excesses, especially with those that are taking fat soluble vitamins. A lot of people will take a lot of vitamin A and vitamin D, which are fat soluble, and we can see an excess of that sometimes. But the majority of the times I've seen people with vitamin and mineral deficiencies. It's rare for me, I'm not saying this is all around the board, but it's rare for me to see an excess in certain micronutrients. It's more common to see a deficiency. Now, the value of knowing these things is that we will be able to correlate that with your hormonal picture. We'll be able to correlate that with your microbiome and then look at your genetics. Maybe you're predisposed to not being able to utilize a specific form of a vitamin, and you'll see that in your SpectraCell, and you'll need a specific type, or you'll need a specific food group that you need to increase in. So you'll start to see how now at the nutrient level where those holes start fitting in. You'll also see where your microbiome may need more of something, right? So if your microbiome is deficient in a certain mineral or a vitamin, then you'll need to increase that. But the other thing is that your microbiome also produces certain vitamins and minerals and all these micronutrients. So now, if we know that there's a deficiency within the microbiome itself, that community, we know that if we give certain things that will help increase that bacteria or whatever it is within the microbiome, then it'll produce those micronutrients, right? So instead of just taking, say, a certain B vitamin, maybe we can increase that population within the microbiome to then produce that and then eat the prebiotics that will help support the probiotics. You guys kind of see how all of this starts fitting in, right? A lot of people, they just get the SpectraCell and they say, oh, well, I'm deficient in this vitamin or mineral. I'm just going to supplement with that. But if we understand that, one, maybe my genetic propensity, it doesn't account for that. Or two, I may have imbalance in my microbiome that I can just shore up that deficiency, and then that'll take care of that. You start to see how we can get more closer to the root cause of the deficiency rather than just trying to fill the hole while the hole is still there. That's the value of having the SpectraCell micronutrient analysis. So we've gone through 4 of the tests. We've gone through genetic testing. We've gone through the gut microbiome. We've gone through the hormones. And we've gone through the micronutrients. And then the last one is probably where everybody starts with it, which is the metabolic panel. And you go to your medical doctor and you say that you don't feel well, and they run a metabolic panel. Right? They look at your sodium, potassium, lipid profile. It may include hormonal tests, but these are just kind of like markers of pathology. And this is what I always tell patients is if a lot of these markers are off, that means that your body is metabolically out of whack, and something needs to be done. Now, the majority of the time, though, these people, they may feel terrible, but they get those labs back and those numbers actually fall within the reference ranges that are given on that lab test. And it frustrates people even more. And when they come to me, what I do is we look at the numbers and we look at the story that it tells. And the reference values don't necessarily equate to what optimal function would be. So we look at those numbers in the sense of what are they in relation to the optimal ranges. That's how we start to tell the story. Then we start to look at the ratios between the two, because the numbers in and of itself for a specific marker could fall within the reference range, but in relation to each other, they may have a different ratio. Okay, so you got to understand that the entire body is connected and they balance off of each other, and that if the ratios are off, then the total function will be off as well. So I recommend getting a complete metabolic panel. If you can't get one at your provider, you can go to like Quest or Doctor's Data. We also have used the wellness panel from ZRT Labs. That's another good one that we've used in the past. But if you have all of these 5 tests, this will give you a solid ground to stand on so that you can understand where you are currently at. This is your health report card to show you your metabolic and cellular function, where you need to be focused on. Now, in the deep dive insider podcasts, which are for my members, we're gonna dive into some of the other labs that we want to look at to get even more specific, and we're gonna dive into the reference values, what those things should look like for you, and how to get them there. So if you're not a member of that, make sure you go and subscribe to the Insiders Podcast. You can go to my website, www.tripleplayperformance.com, and you can find all the information there. Or if you just want to look it up on my social media accounts, it's all there as well. It's Triple Play Doc on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. What is it? The Facebook pages or whatever. I don't know what it's called nowadays. But I'm everywhere. I'm also on TikTok because my teenage children are telling me that I needed to be on TikTok. And I get on TikTok, and all of a sudden I'm not as cool as what I thought I was, because my kids are telling me the memes that I'm sharing with them aren't as cool as what they know. So I'm officially old man status. That was a funny thing. I was like, man, we came up with those types of memes a long time ago, and all of a sudden I'm the old guy. I've officially become the old guy. So yeah, I'm on TikTok as well. Just trying to make sure that I give the information to as many people as possible, and appreciate all the people that share the information with their friends and family on whatever social media platforms that I'm on and you're on as well. So with that said, if you have any questions, please reach out to me on any of my socials. And again, if this has been of value to you, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes and share this with your friends and family. Till the next time, this is Dr. Mike, Triple Play Doc, saying be well and aloha.
Hey, if you've enjoyed this podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Connect with me on Instagram at Triple Play Doc. Stay tuned for more episodes. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell the entire world. Till the next episode, be well and aloha.